instance, been aware rather more quickly than most when the ethnic look had been overtaken by its successor. But he had learned long ago not to be too influenced by them. Guilt, he knew, did not necessarily go with unkempt clothes or a dirty appearance, or indeed with dirt itself, although he was well aware that without exception all the solicitors in Beerbury advised their clients that a neat and tidy look went down well with the magistrates. And short hair. Actually, Henry Simmons was always a little wary of a short back and sides haircut that had a freshly barbered look about it, but he never said so, not even to his fellow magistrates. And he was noticeably less affected by long, straggling locks and a beard on a young man than the rest of the bench with whom he sat. They were apt to bracket having long hair with the charge, and to think of it as another and separate offence. The girl in the dock had lovely hair. It fell down on her shoulders with an entirely natural grace. Even when the members of the bench were in the privacy of their retiring room discussing sentences, and the other magistrates muttered something about "and get his hair cut," as if it were either an additional punishment or a remedy for ill-doing, Henry Simmons always resisted the temptation to join in. This was entirely due to the influence of his great-aunts. He was old enough to remember their finding a new young medical assistant to their old family doctor unacceptable because he was clean-shaven. But then they had been brought up in the era of the grand beard that had only gradually given way to the mutton chop and the sideburn. "Do you wish to say anything?" asked the clerk to the magistrates. Lucy Durmast turned her head attentively in his direction, but made no reply. Henry Simmons was still thinking about her clothes. It was quite difficult, he conceded silently to himself, for anyone to know the correct garment to wear for an appearance in court. But this girl had clearly applied her mind to the problem. There was nothing in the least bit way out in what she had on, but nothing apologetic either. She had seen to it that someone had brought in suitable garments for her to wear, and she was as well groomed as prison facilities allowed. "Have you anything to say?" The clerk let a note of peremptoriness creep into his voice. "Do you wish to bring witnesses?" The peremptory note did not affect Lucy Durmast's resolution, if that was what it was, not to speak, and she did not answer him. There was that, though, about the way in which she held her head high and yet courteously inclined, that made Henry Simmons reflect that in an earlier day and age Lucy Durmast might have dressed for a different sort of court appearance. Presentation there, in that other court, a vague memory of old sepia-coloured photographs of ostrich feathers floated through his mind, meant that you were being brought to the sovereign's attention in a different way. And yet, in a curious fashion, both courts were the sovereign's houses. That was what the very word court meant. The court was the place where the king or queen was. The fact that he, Henry Simmons of Almstone, Justice of the Peace, was there today in the court at Beerbury as the Queen's surrogate, descended directly from the fact that Her Majesty couldn't be in every court up and down the land at the same time, while justice demanded that she should be. In essence, Henry Simmons of Almstone held the Queen's commission to act on her behalf. "Do you wish to say anything?" said the clerk again. Answer came there none. There was not even, noted Henry Simmons, the faintest shake or nod of that fine head of hair that could possibly be construed as a response to the most dreadful charge in the book. The girl held herself quite still, almost as if she were afraid that any movement at all might be taken for what it was not. And erect, too. There was nothing cringing about her posture. No one could have implied guilt from anything about the way in which she stood. The clerk fell back on a more ancient formula still. "Lucy Mirabell Durmast, how say you?" Lucy Mirabell Durmast said nothing at all. Henry Simmons wondered if anyone had ever told Lucy Durmast how beautiful her hair was. He glanced down at the list of cases on the bench in front of him to remind himself of a name. Kenneth Malcolm Carline. Had Kenneth Carline ever said anything about Lucy Durmast's hair, he wondered, before he was murdered?